the scene over there. If you're in any of these social medias, we're going to talk 15 to 20 minutes about our philosophy, because our philosophy is our love of wisdom, is another way to say that, right? Our philosophy is our love of wisdom. That's what philosophy means, okay? And so we love wisdom because we're mankind. And in the Bible, there was a man named Solomon, and he's also in the Quran. So that's half the world, if not more, all right? There's a man named King Solomon, and he had everything. You know, you think I have everything? I do. He also had everything. And he was the richest, the wealthiest, and the most righteous king that we've had so far in history, even more than Marcus Aurelius. And he's famous for saying, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. And when he had a chance to speak to God, he asked for one thing. What does a man who has everything ask for? I wonder. Like, if you achieved everything, Gio, and you fully got every particle of life, you know what you would want? You would want what Solomon wants, which is wisdom. I want to know more, right? We crave wisdom, right? And that's philosophy. Philosophers are people who love wisdom. So our philosophy is extremely powerful, right? Because it goes in such deep, deep layers that somewhere in there, you find Christ consciousness. Somewhere in there, you find Buddha consciousness and Muhammad consciousness. And on your way down, you find Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great. In IMC, you go through all that. In fact, on your way down, you may find Wonder Woman consciousness, and Green Lantern is there, and so is Namor, the Prince of Atlantis, and all the way down. And the deeper you go this way, the further the tree grows that way. Now, we have a PhD on environmental sciences. I only know through my limited schooling and unlimited perception. Is it true that the height of the tree is also determined by the depth of the roots?
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to see an enormous redwood tree in San Jose area, Bay Area, with tiny little roots holding it in place. That wouldn't even work, right? The same thing humans use. Now, you may not know it. I want you to go look at the tallest skyscraper you've ever seen. Did you know that as tall as it is, it's that far into the ground? You didn't know that? Well, do the math, right? Let's say half of this is upstairs. You could see it, right? Half of it is downstairs. This is solid now. Now with wind coming this way or anything hitting it this way, look at it's in the... Now, ready? Let's make it where there's only this much underground. Now look at all that up here. The higher that it goes with less on the ground, the weaker it's going to be up here, right? So in order for something to go up, it must have its roots going down, right? This is literally physics. And we love physics because physics is a mathematics of God or the creator. That's how they should have taught us, right? When we went into mathematics, they should have told us, we're going to teach you how to turn the entire universe into numbers and formulas. And then they should have told us there was somebody in history named Pythagoras, and he was a mathematician, but he was also a philosopher. He loved wisdom. And do you know what he did? He was able to do things that no other human could do before. Now, if I heard that in math, believe me, I'd be studying those formulas. And then they would have to tell me that algebra is simply finding out the unknown. Just so you know, that's what algebra is. Algebra, you try to figure out what X is. You know how valuable that is? In fact, in my life, one of my strongest skills is algebra in life, to find out the hidden datum. Now, how do you find X in algebra? You find the symbols you already have to find X. And if you can't find X, you substitute other symbols until it solves the problem. There's your problem with money, right? Money is X. You don't know how to solve it. And you keep using the same symbols. Change the symbols. Or try dividing and subtracting. Try doing something to the other side of the equation and see what happens to this side of the equation. The rule is, in algebra, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you must do it on the other side of the equation. That tells you that that's the physics of life. That there's nothing I can take from you without losing something here. And there's nothing I can give to you without gaining here. Why? Because what happens on one side of the equation must happen on the other side, whether you're aware of it or not. You could like it or not like it, but it will happen, and you have to become aware of it. I'll give you an example. You may not realize that your body is tighter than it should be. That goes for 100% across, including myself, okay? So you may not realize that it's tighter than what it's naturally supposed to be right now. Let's put it another way, right? That the tightness of your movement in your body, the range is another way of saying tightness, right? The range of your body has been limited so much by what? The process of living. Your way of living is a process, right? You're repeating the same patterns over and over. That becomes a process, right? And it's resulting in your body's range becoming less and less and less. This would be like if I said a bird who could fly 10 miles now flies 6 miles, then flies 2 miles, then flies 1 mile. And you would say, why? I would say the bird stopped flying. It started walking, okay? And now that bird has strong legs, right? But it's not a natural bird. So it can't do what it was supposed to do, and it's also miserable. And when it starts to walk, it's stronger than its ancestors walking, but birds were never supposed to walk unless they were a roadrunner or a fucking ostrich. There are some that walk, and those that I just named have some really mighty legs that make up for their fucking lack of wings. An ostrich can run 35 miles an hour and whoop your ass with his legs. Think about it, okay? It's true. Because I told you, God never took the equation from one and put it without the other one. If it had done that, that creature would not be able to survive in the jungle. And the jungle, every corner you turn, there's going to be a poisonous creature. There's going to be a claw or a teeth on you. There's going to be a plant you shouldn't be touching. There's going to be a thorn you run into. There's going to be a cave that something already lives in. Like, you got to understand, your senses have also been dulled because here we are, look, right? We're inside. And that's why my teacher had a process of communion with nature. Go outside and connect to nature again. Now, what if, let's say you live in the desert? We do, right? Well, it's very easy. You take a walk in the morning. Literally, you just take a walk. You can't help but to be in nature, right? Unless you're locked up like my brother for the rest of his life. Now, there's going to be consequences to that. And even there, they know that the prisoners must get outside an hour a day. And they don't, by the way. That's why it's called a prison, right? But they know too, like, to be healthy, you need to connect to nature because our senses were designed for nature, by nature, to be in nature, okay? And so when we design, like, let's say you've been building a house. Did you know that if you build that house with natural wood and mud, that the energy inside that house and the way you feel when you're in it is going to be completely different? Completely different. The less synthesized it is, the less other chemicals are added to it. Now, something we should understand about chemicals is that chemicals are also made of nature. Like, even plastic is natural. It's mankind's natural intelligence applied to sand, grain, whatever fuck chemicals there are. So I'm not into looking at a big skyscraper and going, look at how we fucked up the earth. No, we didn't fuck up the earth. Because if we planted the skyscraper there, because we had to plant it, we had to go into the ground, dig, just like we do a tree. We had to put all the right ingredients, the cement, and then we had to grow it. Have you seen how we do that? People have to go there, put their energy and grow the next part, structure it again. So we grew the concrete. We grew the steel, without a doubt. That's how powerful we became at some point with what God gave us. With the same power comes this. How many trees do we cut down to do this? 10? Let's plant 20. It's as easy as that. Whenever you have a problem with technology, right? There's somewhere on earth that you could go plant 6 more trees if you cut down 3 or 10 more trees. And if there was a regulation, I don't think there should be any regulations in the world at all. 0 regulations. And I mean that. Why? Because we're all intelligent enough to see it. So if all of our neighbors, right, were super aware and natural, and there was no call the police, there was just none of that. It just didn't exist. There was no such thing, right? Then, if some shady-looking people walked through this neighborhood and there was no cops and everybody was natural, the first thing every natural creature would do is recognize a stranger in their area. And you know what they wouldn't do? Ignore it. They would walk up and smell it or growl at it or pound their chest. They would approach and say, what are you doing here? And anybody in a new neighborhood should be approached by people of that neighborhood, no matter what. That would be the natural thing to do. the group of neighbors should just walk out and say, without even contacting each other, just look out, oh, who the fuck's that guy? This neighbor comes out, other neighbor comes out, the other neighbor comes out, and they just go to the guy, and what are you doing here? Oh, I'm visiting a friend. Oh, who's your friend? He's the one that lives there. Okay, cool. They all just stand around. Well, go visit your friend then. Right? The person just walks around, comes back, and runs because they weren't doing that. They were casing the area, looking to see when they can come back and steal shit, right? Seeing what doors are open, what kind of cars there are. That's called casing an area. Casing it, yeah. But then let's say the person was like, okay. And you know what? They didn't take offense either. They thought, this is a good neighborhood I like to live in, actually. Why? They had a friend there. So their friend comes out. They shake hands. Everybody sees it. They know that person. Okay, that's it. Next time they see that person, they let them go. That's natural, right? We don't need to pretend like that person doesn't exist when they're walking around looking shady as fuck, right? And we're just like, well, I don't care. You're going to care. You're going to care tomorrow if you don't care today, okay, if they're in your neighborhood. So physics and mathematics and life in itself is so fascinating if you pay attention to it and forget what you were told. Just forget what you were told. It's a lie. It doesn't work. If it worked, you wouldn't be miserable, would you? The relationship advice they gave was shit. The money advice they gave was shit. The education was shit. Education was shit because you can't remember anything you learned based on all the hours you spent learning it. You might remember 1, 2, or 3, maybe 10. If you remember 10 things from school, that's a lot. I ask people all the time. I ask somebody with a master's degree, give me 1 or 2 psychology fucking ideas if you're a master in psychology. And they'll come up with some basic shit like, well, you know, what happened in your childhood affects you. It's like, oh, you went to school for fucking 7 years, 10 years, and that's what they fucking told you? Right? That's just one YouTube video that's more aesthetic than watching that teacher and killing myself every night to pass a test that I don't, because they give you a trillion pieces of information that are useless. And that's how you make a system overload. You get that? You just give it so much and then you tell it the quiz could be on anything. I would never say the quiz is on anything. I would say this is what the test is going to be on. These are the most important parts of this. For example, if you're in social dynamics, number 1, most important, do not violate the environment you're in, social dynamics. 2, it comes with an extra question. What if the environment I'm in is dangerous and unhealthy? Here's the answer. You must remove yourself. Next, what if I can't remove myself? You must place boundaries. Next, what if I'm attacked in my boundary? Now we're getting into a really bad situation where a person finds themselves in a place they should never be in. There's questions before that. How'd you end up there? Why'd you stay? Did you not notice the people when you walked in? Or did you override it with a thought like, well, I'll just wait and see what it's like, or, you know, I don't want to be rude, I'll leave in 10 minutes. See, animals don't do that. Nature, which is God in its purest form, doesn't apologize for saying, this water, the fish goes to the shallow, and the last time it was at the shallow, someone tried to spear it, right? And it nicked it, just nicked it, and it survived. But that pain and that moment was understood. Now the fish is going towards the shallow, and when the water has the same kind of murkiness or whatever, the fish just turns the fuck around and goes back, darts back. And you're like, how did it know that? You've seen it sometimes. No. It has a system that tells it if it gets any closer to that area, someone's going to grab it. It's happened before to it. Now, the difference between the fish and you and I is we can look a little further. If I go into that fish's consciousness, I analyze more, okay? But humans have begun to overanalyze. Now the fish looks and says, well, there's a human there, but you know what? No, and now the fish is caught in his head. It's not that much of an analysis. It's sitting at a red light, looking around. There's no cars in sight. It's 3 a.m. and the light is not turning green. And you're looking everywhere, and that decision to drive or not is not a 24-minute debate. You're going to have to make a decision, okay? Either reverse, go make a right, make a right, make a road. You turn it all the way around, which I've done before, or run that red light with the risk of a cop or a fucking ticket, right? But what's more important than both of those decisions is that my inner world should not be split so much. Right? I don't want to walk into a place and have, 10 really nice cell phones to choose from. I'm going to make no choice. I want 2 choices. This one or that one. What does this one do? It has a better camera. This one has more data. Fuck. Let's get the camera. I use it more. Right? And one of the things that they destroy humans with is they give them a million choices and they pretend like they're all the same. Thus, marketing and advertising, the secret to marketing and advertising. I walk in, there's all this detergents, right, for washing clothes. I don't ever wash clothes. I don't remember the last time I washed clothes, but other people do it. It's not like it's all dirty. But if I go in there, I see Tide, I'm gonna grab Tide. You know why? Because I've seen Tide's commercial. I've heard the word Tide. In fact, if you ask me about detergent, you could just say, do we have any Tide? And I might just say they're there, and you go, and it's not even Tide. And you're like, this is not Tide. I go, oh, I don't know, it's there. And you say, no, I'm looking for Tide. Very few people do that, right? At some point it became, not anymore I noticed, but at some point it became, you would go to a restaurant and say, can I have a Coke? And Coke meant a soft drink, right? You said Coke, they'd be like, you want a Sprite? You'd be like, yeah, Sprite. But I thought you meant Coke. No, you meant soft drink, soda pop, or whatever the fuck it is, right? So that's what happens with language. Language makes us describe conditions and what they are, okay? And so why you're so confused and lost is you're using the language that the schools gave you and your parents gave you. And all you gotta do is take a look at your parents and take a look at school and ask yourself, would you like to be like them? No, don't do the unnatural thing of doing gymnastics to say, well, you know, my dad was, you know, he was a hard-working man. That's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you to pick one quality. I just said, do you want to be like them? Do you want to have the lifestyle they had? If the answer is no, then you must not follow them because they will lead you the path that they went on. That's all they know. How could I lead you on a path that I've never walked? I'd like someone to fucking explain that to me. How do I have a map for a place I've never been to? So how are you going to tell me about money if you never made as much money as I like to make? The way I want to make it. That's also part of it, right? I can go somewhere and speak to drug dealers and find out very quickly that and I can become very wealthy selling drugs. But that's not the way that I want to do money. So it's not just about that guy makes money. It's how the fuck does he make money? Isn't that important to you? It's important to me, right? Epstein was a billionaire, right? There is what that does. There's Bill Gates. There's all that other shit, right? P. Diddy has a lot of money or had a lot of money or whatever. Like, is that what you want, right? The ladies that admire the Kim Kardashians and the J-Los and the Beyoncés, how does it seem now, right? How does it seem now, right? You must have some kind of moral conflict inside if you loved Beyonce's music. I mean, how could you not when you realize what she's done and what she's doing? How can you not have a moral conflict inside, right? And how do you justify that by yourself? Now, you can clearly say, I love her music and she's evil. But if you said that, you would be making it up because you have to align 100 other values under that for that to be a true statement. You're using it as a justification that allows the disease to stay wherever it's at, okay? But the same statement could be true. I'll give you an example. If the Buddha decided to shoot up meth, the Buddha could shoot up meth. And you don't have to worry about the Buddha shooting meth. He's not going to end up an addict. It's the Buddha, right? And the act of shooting meth by the Buddha is different than the act of anybody else shooting meth, just the way it is. And what are we talking about? We're talking about a person's character. End of story. The Buddha is the awakened one, Siddhartha Gautama. Jesus, if Jesus decided to shoot meth, you're going to have to trust him. Why? Because he's consistently demonstrated everything he does. Now, afterwards, we watch him. If he becomes a meth head, it's time to stop trusting him. But knowing Jesus, that wouldn't happen. Something else would happen suddenly. Who knows, right? So what we've done is we've taken these words and symbols and made them into the soul of man. The soul of man is the one that uses that. Being a doctor doesn't make you an ethical human being, doesn't make you a good human being, doesn't make you any kind of human being, actually. Right? You could be the most evil. There's been the most... Dr. Fauci, how's that? There's an evil human being. Think about it, okay? You could be a doctor and be evil. You could be a lawyer. You could be a judge. You could be a caregiver. You could be a psychologist. The titles, you could be a priest, a minister. None of those mean anything. In fact, the two kindest titles on planet Earth are mother and father. You've had evil mothers and fathers. That doesn't make them good. Just because they're your fucking mother doesn't make them good. Just because they're your father doesn't make them good. Right? It's their character that we're always judging, right? So IMC Nation is the character building. And I put myself online as the first person. I sit here with a claim that I have a better character according to the estimations of 100 people than you and yours, whatever the fuck that is. I say that if you put 100 people on a jury and you could pick them, that if they observed my life and your life, my communication, your communication, my relationship, your relationship to any subject, and I mean any subject, that out of 100 people, they would rule me as a better character than you. That's a big claim, and I stand by it. And until you could show me otherwise, I would say you should show up and realize that what I'm teaching you is more important than anything you could possibly learn, whether you're a man or a woman. Because in the end, you're judged by your character, even by God. This is IMC Nation. Be the best and fuck the rest. Later.